Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this Global Divestment Mobilisation broadcast hosted by 350.org. My name is Larato Letebele, and as the facilitator of this global webinar, I'd like to extend a massive note of welcome and gratitude to you all across the globe for taking the time out to join us today. Request to everyone, please do sign in on the chat and let us know from which corner of the earth you are tuning in from. We would like to know. So to get started, a quick highlight on the aims of today's webinar. We all know that the Global Divestment Mobilisation is just under a week and a half away. So this is really the time and an opportunity for us to collectively build the momentum we need to shine a spotlight on the spread of divestment to new regions around the world, and of course to demonstrate the success that divestment is having in fighting the fossil fuel industry. I do have to mention that we don't have a lot of time. We have just about 45 minutes to an hour for this discussion. So without taking up too much time, I would like to introduce you all to our panelists who also serve as 350.org's board members. We have Melina Lubican Massimo, who is representing the Indigenous community and a longtime environmental activist. We have Liddy Nakpil, an activist from the Philippines, who, amongst others, is an environmental, gender, and social justice activist. We have Bill McKibben, of course, an activist, scientist, and renowned author, as well as South Africa's human rights activist, Kumi Naidoo. Panelists, welcome to you all. Great, let's get started. The first question, of course, is why is divestment so crucial at this point in time? And how will the global divestment mobilization build the momentum that the campaign needs?
Hey, Bill.
Bill, please. Unfortunately, we did miss a huge chunk of what you said there. If you could please unmute yourself, and if we could take that answer from you again, please. Yes, please. And I still cannot hear you. We seem to be having some technical difficulties with our panelists. Nothing at all. So while we wait to hear to hopefully get some answers from our panelists there, we would just do a quick roundup of, with the global divestment mobilization taking place, 350.org has been gearing up. And as I'm sure you have all seen in the press, on our social media pages, on our websites, people are excited, people are signing up, and people are registering their events. To date, we have 39 countries and about 280 events that have have already been registered. So that's really exciting. And it is really important to realize that this moment is not really about, it's not just about the number of events that we are having across the world, but it's really about the impact of those events and the impact that we want to collectively have in ensuring that we are putting a halt and a stop to the fossil fuel industry. Let us see if we have, are we winning there with Bill? No, we're not. So what we will do now is maybe just change the order of things around. We have got some 350 members who are joining us and campaigners that have been working on the divestment campaign, and I will do a quick round to hear from everybody across the world to hear what it is that they're working on. And of course,
is this better now? Can you
Bill,
hear us?
is this you?
It's me.
Yes.
If you can hear us. I'm really sorry. Everybody is completely mobilized here. We're all completely behind you, but we're having one or two minor technical difficulties. Everybody in DC is completely gearing up right at the moment for this big march on Saturday, and there's hundreds of thousands of people pouring in by bus. I spent the morning with Bernie Sanders here in the US, and he sends his love out to everybody all over the world, says that he completely understands that people all over the globe are working hard on these questions. You're going to hear from several board members here in a minute as we're doing this, just checking in. But we want to say that we're so, once everybody gets through this march, the thing that everybody's looking forward to all around the globe is this launch of the GDM. We're so excited about what's going on. And just to give you sort of a little bit of momentum, this week, the amazing organizers, student organizers here in the United States managed to pressure Harvard University, where they've been campaigning for years. Harvard apparently has divested in the last few days. So we're on a strong roll going forward. That was an exciting thing. Now let me just talk for 2 minutes about why we need this so badly and about how, what a powerful tool this is. As you know, we're now in a kind of emergency situation on climate change. It's not some thing for the future anymore. There are people all over this planet now dying day in, day out from the effects of what we're doing on the planet, and it's getting worse with each passing month. That's why we've got to fight so hard. And there's lots of ways to do that. When people are putting up pipelines, we try to block pipelines. When people are building coal mines, we try to block coal mines. And we're winning a lot of those fights. The organizing's amazing. But not everybody's near a pipeline or a coal mine necessarily. And that's why people also are figuring out how to get in the way of the money that's headed towards building these things all over the place. And it's exciting to watch that process happening in different cultures, in different economies, with different scales, in different places. It's such a powerful tool. And it helps people realize that we have to move quickly. One of the things that we say about climate change all the time is that winning slowly is the same thing as losing, okay? That we need to move quickly. And here's a way for people to move quickly all over the place. I've gotten to watch this process way down under in Australia and New Zealand, all across Europe, all across North America. And the fact that it's going completely global is the best news ever. You can't believe how much that annoys the fossil fuel industry and the banking industry and the people who are trying to build out the fossil fuel infrastructure around the planet. This is what makes them crazy, that people are in the way, that people are standing up, that people are fighting. So we're all going to work hard to make sure that this is a huge success globally. And I want to just bring in a couple of the people who are here right now. Kumi, can you come say hi for a minute, and Liddy and whoever else. You all know Kumi Naidoo, who's one of the great champions all over the planet. Kumi, just give a tiny sense of things.
So good to see you folks, and thank you for the work that you're doing. I think that right now it's clear that there's a need for intensifying our efforts, given what's happening with Trump and with the whole range of negative tendencies elsewhere. And I think, you know, the contribution this divestment work is making is quite significant in a relatively short space of time. I remember Bill and I having a conversation over dinner at Rio Plus 20 in Rio when he first raised the idea, and at that time, you know, we were not sure whether it will get the kind of juice that it's got. But thanks to people like you, we have serious momentum with us now. And I would just conclude by saying from my end that, you know, part of the issue around the divestment work, which is, you know, aimed at foundations, trusts, universities, high net worth individuals, religious institutions, and so on. That's one critically important piece, including pension funds and so on. But the other piece of work that I've been working on with others is following the money more generally. You know, we need to also be, I think in the coming year and beyond, getting better at how do we put pressure on central banks. These are, you know, your Federal Reserves, the Bank of England, and so on. How do we put pressure on intergovernmental banks, commercial banks, and so on? And how do we also increase the capacity of activists on the ground when they are going after, say, a dam in Brazil, in the Amazon? How do they get better at the financial component of the campaigning? Because sometimes we go after the actual economic institution that's doing the damage, right? A mining company or a logging company or whatever. But sometimes we can win those battles faster if people on the ground actually know who is planning to fund that logging company and so on. So just to say that this work now is going to be part of the Climate Action Network, and then it will be known as shorthand as Global Climate Finance Campaign. But we very much include in the framework and the overall, the critical work that you all are engaged in, and I thank you for that.
And let me thank you, Kumi, very much. Let me bring in Liddy I'm going to stand up and let her sit down here.
I just wanted to say hello and say that we're from Asia. We work with many movements in Asia. We're really very much inspired by the divestment campaign and what people are doing all over the world. And we're hoping that we can do a lot more in terms of stopping fossil fuel financing, because we know that in our part of the world, it's where there's a very fast-growing investment in fossil fuels, especially coal, and that there's a lot of Asian institutions that are actually major players. They're among the top 20 financiers of coal and fossil fuels, especially from Japan, China, Korea. So we want to do our part, and we're very happy that our activists are inspired by what's going on in other parts of the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Liddy. And I know Melina is there with you as well. And I would like to hear from her a little bit about how we're seeing climate impact rolling out across the globe. Is Melina there with us? We seem to have lost our panelists.
Melina will be here in just a second, okay? She's...
Sure.
I got to tell
No
you,
problem.
things are mildly chaotic here. When you're throwing a party and there's several 100,000 people coming, things get a little nutty. But she'll be here any minute, I think.
Sure, no worries. So, Bill, you were saying we should be moving really quickly. Things are intensifying, and we really need to be following the money here. Tell us a little bit about how we're seeing the climate impacts rolling out and impacting vulnerable communities across the world.
Okay, so this is my particular specialty, I guess. I wrote the first book about climate change almost 30 years ago now. And back then it was still, something that was going to happen in the future. But now it's something that happens every day. I see Aaron is on the call, and he's made a specialty of sort of tracking the daily ongoing toll, the damage bill all over the world. And just watching it, it's always worth bearing in mind the kind of iron law of climate change. The people who have done the least to cause the problem suffer the most and the first from what's going on. So, any given day now, last week it was incredible flooding in Colombia and Peru and Ecuador with landslides that killed lots of people after record rains. The week before that, it was the ongoing bleaching of corals in the Pacific reaching new records. And of course, that means that low-lying nations that depend on coral reefs to protect them from the waves are much more vulnerable. The week before that, it was new reports about the spread of mosquitoes in much of the world, and with them the diseases that now, like dengue, that now plague so much of the planet, or Zika, or all the other such things. These are the things that are unavoidable if you let the planet begin to heat up in this fashion. And begin is the key word. So far, we've only raised the temperature of the Earth about 1 degree Celsius, but we're headed on a path to, in the lifetimes of younger people like you, Lorado, to increase the temperature of the planet 3.5 degrees Celsius. If we do that, we will not be able to have civilizations like the ones that we're used to having on this Earth. So it's really imperative that we get to work really, really fast. And one of the people who's very good at getting to work fast is Melina, who is here now and can come talk for a minute with you all. I have to say goodbye because I have to go do a bunch of interviews to get ready for Saturday. But God bless you all for the work that you're doing. And this GDM is going to be amazing. And we're going to fan out all over the world to help you in all the ways we can. So do not hesitate to say the word and ask for how everybody can be of help. Thank you so much to everybody who's engaged in this, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you, Bill. And I'll be seeing you in Ghana soon. Melina, welcome, and welcome to this broadcast. A quick question to you, of course, is how is divestment impacting the fossil fuel industry? Are we seeing government supporting more of the divestment call and really pulling money out of the industry?
I wouldn't say, well, I guess what I'll talk from is a Canadian Indigenous perspective, because I myself am from northern Alberta, Canada, in the tar sands. So we've been dealing with, I think even before the term was coined, divestment is actually dealing with shareholders and going to companies in Europe, as well as asking companies and banks and banking institutions, pension funds, as well as cultural institutions like Tate Museum to divest from fossil fuel companies. And so that has been ushered in a really amazing thing we've seen kind of an impact on the ground in Alberta, say in the tar sands, for instance, where with that type of divestment and as well as partnered, I guess with the drop of oil, we've really seen an impact on the industry in Alberta. And that's been, I think, good for communities, not necessarily good for workers. And so I think that's why what we're doing at the same time is not only pushing for divestment, but a reinvestment into renewable energy systems, and to a just transition for workers, but also for communities that are first and foremost impacted by resource extraction and impacted by climate change. And so that's what we're really hoping to push in this next kind of, I guess, next era of divestment is, what does reinvestment actually look like? And how do we support communities that are facing the brunt of environmental degradation and climate change to actually be the first in line to receive renewable energy to help their communities transition. And so that's what is really exciting. And one of the things that we did actually in my home community was we fundraised to implement a solar project. So we put a 20.8 kilowatt system that powers our health center in the middle of the tar sands. And it basically a solar system that powers our health community. So it's something that I think that we're trying to model and trying to push for communities to be able to produce their own power and be more self-sufficient and energy sovereign.
Fantastic. And just to wrap up, a final word from Kumi. How do you feel the divestment mobilization is taking place and rolling out on the African continent, which we know is also one of the most impacted by climate change?
I think Kumi actually just stepped out to make a call. So I think he's not actually in the building right now. I think they just went to go look for him. So sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. You guys are thoroughly busy there, and we definitely do appreciate your time for stepping in and taking a few minutes to join us here. We have learned a lot, and we obviously value the work that you're all doing. Please, good luck with everything else that you're doing there, and we will see you during the Global Divestment Mobilization. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we're still here, and of course we have on the call with us campaigners around the world who are working really hard for the GDM taking place in a couple of weeks. And I will start off with our campaigner in Africa, Ahmed Mokopinyo. Please do tell us, how are things taking place in Africa?
Thank you, Lerato, and hi to everyone that's connecting with us from across the world. So in Africa, up to this point, organizing for GDM has shown us that there is an invigorated sense of urgency for the climate movement and our partners to challenge African institutions to step into their leadership by divesting from the fossil fuel industry and its related impact on people and their communities. We've got 16 events registered, spread across North, South, East, and West Africa, resistant against Africa's growing addiction to coal for electricity generations is at levels never seen before through the use of divestment as a tactic working towards stopping catastrophic climate change. Just a quick highlight on some of the events to look out for is, for one, there's a peaceful march in your neighborhood of Accra, Lerato, where people are organizing against climate impacts and are making it clear to government that people expect that the government's campaign promise to shun coal and scale up renewables is to be implemented now that they are in power. In South Africa, we have student organizers that are forging ahead with their demand for the universities to commit to divesting. Some campuses are even planning a coordinated action to take place on the same day at the same time as a way of demonstrating that young people want to see their campuses begin to take meaningful action against the fossil fuel industry and the climate crisis. One of our, I guess, flagship events is a petition delivery at the Cape Town City Hall. At the moment, Cape Town is experiencing the worst drought it has seen in decades. Our call is for the city to commit to divesting, even on a symbolic level. It is about trying to, on the one hand, be on the right side of history, but really to shun the fossil fuel industry. A petition has been launched online, and as of today, we've reached 64% of our intended sign-up target. So with 2 weeks to go until drop-off, we're sure that we can reach our target and meet our goal of securing a meeting with the city mayor. Yes, it's been really great to see that organizing thus far has seen some new movement attention in the region, especially because we've originally thought that GDM would only be we'd only see GDM registrations in South Africa. So it's been good all around. And back to you, Lerato.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ahmed. And of course, to everybody who's joining us across the world, please do send us your questions. We will have some time after this to go through them and to really answer any questions that we possibly can. So don't be shy. Go into the chat. Let us know where you're emailing and joining us from, and send us your questions. And now we go over to Aaron, who will give us an update on what is happening in East Asia, and of course in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. And in fact, New Zealand is where I'm currently calling in from. It's nearly 6:30 in the morning, so it's all a bit early for our part of the world. But I see on the chat there's some heroes who have signed in at probably 3 a.m. or something like that their time. So yeah, in Australia and New Zealand, the focus really is singular, and that is fighting off the biggest coal mine in development in Australia, the Carmichael mine in the outback of Queensland. And this is a massive project that involves, hundreds of kilometres of building rail. It requires a coal power plant to power the power station, to power the mine. It goes through the Great Barrier Reef. It's a nightmare. And there's over 90 actions across Australia and New Zealand that are putting pressure on Westpac Bank, who have refused to rule out funding the mine. So it's called Stop Adani. Adani is the company that is aiming to build the mine. Oh man, cat attack. Yeah.
Everybody's joining the mobilization, Aaron.
This is Louis. Hey there. So Louis is coming down to the action in Wellington.
Fantastic.
It's going to be, bringing sea level rise to Westpac Bank up in Auckland. It's people are camping out overnight to demonstrate the impact of sea level rise on communities, and that it will, wipe out houses and homes, and bringing that issue firsthand to Westpac Bank. So that's happening all across Australia and New Zealand. As usual, things are crazy over in Australia. They know how to organise. It's going to be really exciting. Some of the over in East Asia, things are really exciting there as well. We heard from Liddy just before, one of the 350 board members, and she's working with the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice, and they have actions all over the map and really targeting the financing of projects in Palawan, and they know how to organise. There'll be thousands of people out there. And the same in Vietnam, where they're starting to have a conversation about the financing of fossil fuel projects, which is a really big step, given there's limited space to safely talk about these issues and to challenge the government. And in places like Japan, there's the Earth Choice Festa, a festival celebrating solutions around climate change, and then using that as an opportunity to also talk about divesting the personal finances away from fossil fuels. And a similar approach in Indonesia, where this divestment campaign is really new, and so it's in the early stages of educating the public, educating organisers, and building that early momentum in a divestment campaign. So it's exciting times, and there's actions from South Korea to Hong Kong and onwards. So across East Asia, Australia and New Zealand, things are going to be pumping. Louis the cat here is excited. He's really doing a lot of work, a lot of organising, and a lot of sleeping around.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And we do expect to see some great and wonderful pictures that will have Louis the cat in there. And now over to Louise in Europe. Louise, what is happening that side of the world?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm tuning in from the UK, but I'll give you a bit of an overview as I know it of what's happening around the whole of Europe. So the campaign here, the divestment campaign, is actually pretty mature. It started sort of 3-4 years ago actually, and in some places, for example, recently in the UK, we passed the 100 divestment commitments milestone. In Sweden, we've been hearing about cities that are just starting to divest on their own without even campaigns pressuring them to do so. There's a sense of real momentum, but there's also a lot of new people getting involved in the movement. And for the Global Divestment Mobilisation, we've got over 90-something events registered right across the continent. And I guess for the European movement, this mobilization's it's about a couple of things. It's very much about kind of a real focus on events that are going to play a really important strategic role in these longer term campaigns and really help to push decision makers over to the right side of history in campaigns where they've maybe been stuck in getting no's from the institutions they're targeting to divest. So it's not just about kind of one-off events, but about really making significant progress on some of the more mature campaigns. I think it's also about creating those stronger links with climate impacts and the moral dimension of the climate crisis and what it means to be invested in fossil fuels as an institution. So a lot of the actions being planned have a really strong theme, both visually and in the messages that they're trying to get across to their institutions about climate change and the very real impacts that we're hearing about around the world and in Europe as well. And it's definitely about kind of a greater diversity of targets as well. So, there are divestment campaigns targeting cultural institutions from museums to other institutions. There are events targeting Catholic churches. There are Muslim, Jewish events planned in the UK. Even some events targeting policymakers and politicians. In Ireland, they're having an event to try and push forward the world's first fossil fuel divestment bill to divest the whole of Ireland and their sovereign pension fund. There's a real spread, and definitely the focus is on kind of using this moment to really try and grow existing campaigns and groups. So we're hoping Global Divestment Mobilisation will really generate a lot of new interest and get people involved in events, but also thinking about how to kind of make sure that people who do kind of join the movement in this moment are also made welcome and trained up and kind of able to continue taking action in this positive way with the divestment movement. So yeah, a couple of things I'm particularly excited about are some of the actions happening around sponsorship in our museums. There's stuff happening in the Netherlands with the Van Gogh Museum, the Louvre Museum in Paris, which is sponsored by Total, and then in the British Museum, which is sponsored by BP. So we're really challenging this social acceptability that our cultural institutions are giving to the fossil fuel industry. And then other really kind of prominent respected institutions like the Nobel Foundation are going to be I understand in Stockholm, in the centre of Stockholm, they're going to be feeling some climate impacts of their own with a kind of human-generated flood that sounds both beautiful and powerful. So lots of really exciting actions planned right across Europe. And I know that we were expecting to be joined by Nikoli from Latin America, who's not been able to join us. So I just want to mention very quickly that there's a load of actions happening both in Brazil and Argentina and other countries as well. I know a few people are joining in the chat from from Latin America, and we'd love to hear a bit more about what you're planning. Do share in the chat. But hearing about some really big planned climate vigils outside some major cathedrals in Brazil, and you know, a whole range of events that really show the kind of the spread and diversity of this movement, you know, worldwide. So yeah, back to you, Loretta.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Louise. And I do have to ask, seeing as the divestment campaign is quite mature in Europe, and you have been engaged in some really iconic fights, I'm truly interested to know how the general public responds to these actions.
It's interesting, actually. I think it's taken a while for this idea of fossil fuel divestment to take hold. It's not the most obvious concept if you get down into the technical level of it, but I think on a kind of public mainstream level, we've started to see really prominent figures in the mainstream. You know, the head of the Bank of England, for example, taking up this argument around the fact that fossil fuel investments and fossil fuel assets can't even be burnt. So I think on that financial side, it's very much a mainstream concept. What we're trying to do now with events like the Global Divestment Mobilisation is really reinforce the moral urgency of this kind of action. The fact that major public institutions, like our arts institutions, like our pension funds, like our councils, our city governments, could still in 2017, when we're feeling the impacts of climate change right around the world, still be invested in an industry like fossil fuels, seems unrealistic, and that's what we're trying to get across, and seeing a huge spread of the campaign right across Europe, with hundreds and hundreds of campaigns on our actions map, and kind of escalating and growing, whether they're new campaigns or ones that have been going for a long time and still tenaciously trying to get their targets divested. So there's a real sense of momentum, and hopefully, the 5th to the 13th of May will be a moment where we can show our collective power across, not only across Europe, but globally.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Louise. And now we go over to North America, where Richard will give us some updates on what is being planned in that part of the world.
Hey, everybody. Nice to have you on the global chats and hearing about all the things that we're doing around the world. I'm based in Toronto. We're doing a lot of work in both Canada and the US. And in case you haven't heard, there's this guy named Trump who's taken over the White House, and he and his climate-denying cronies are rolling back environmental legislation. There's a real question around whether the United States will pull out of the Paris Agreement. And with the former CEO of Exxon as the new Secretary of State in the United States, fossil fuel companies are literally controlling the White House. So there's a big gap that's at the federal level in the United States as a result of Trump being in the White House. And so what we're looking to do in the United States is get other progressive jurisdictions to step up, to fill the gap, to fill the void that is left behind by the federal government. So that brings us to New York City and New York State. The divestment campaign in New York was launched in 2012, which is a really important year for folks living in New York State. It was right around, in 2012, Superstorm Sandy hit New York State and New Jersey, a massive hurricane that was fueled by climate change. And it caused $65 billion in damage, one of the most damaging weather events in the United States. So New York has felt the impacts of climate change in its own way. And New York also has some of the biggest pension funds in the world. The 6 city and state pension funds are worth about $350 billion. So a massive amount of money, with literally billions of dollars invested in fossil fuel companies, including Exxon. So we're campaigning really hard to get those pension funds divested. and to get New York to step up and take real climate action and show climate leadership, which is so needed right now in the United States. And the good news is we're getting closer and closer. 2 of the funds have divested from coal. Just recently, the city treasurer, whose name is Scott Stringer, has hired new investment managers who are going to be directed to look at the climate footprint of new investments. So things are looking up. There's momentum building, but we also know that time is running out. We can't wait another year, 2 years, 5 years for New York City to show leadership. And so that's why we're putting a big focus on New York City and New York State during Global Divestment Mobilisation 2017. I'll just mention a couple of really exciting events that we're hosting in New York State. They're very different events. One is on May 8th, where we'll be taking people into the halls of power in the capital of New York State and sitting in Albany for a day of lobbying. We're fortunate that there are 2 pieces of legislation that are making their way through the state government that would force the pension funds to divest. So bringing folks there to lobby their representatives to support those bills and get them put into place officially. And then on May 9th, the day afterwards, because there is a circus in the White House, we're going to create a carnival inside the Trump Tower in New York City, which this is one of the most iconic buildings in New York City. This is where Donald Trump's family spends at least half of their time. This is the center of his business empire. And so we think that there's no better place to bring the divestment call to New York and to really link up what's happening at the federal level and what's happening at the local level in the United States. So if you are in New York, please join us for those events. You can learn more and register online at divestnewyork.org. That's divestny.org. And I would say, as I mentioned, momentum really is growing. Just yesterday, Riverside Church, which is one of the most iconic churches in the United States, it's the tallest church in the United States. It was a church that was literally built with oil money. It was founded by the Rockefellers, who are the owners of Standard Oil. And, you know, this is a company that, or this is a family that made their fortune on oil. And they built this church. It just announced that it's going to be divesting its $140 million endowment. So things are looking up in New York. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a lot of stuff going on in Canada as well, where I'm based. We've launched a campaign focused on the Canadian Museum of History. This is one of the most popular museums in the country. It's the 150th anniversary or 150th birthday of Canada. As a country, and unfortunately, the top oil and gas lobbyists are sponsoring the museum. They're sponsoring the museum, and they're sponsoring the 150th year celebrations as well. So we're running an awesome campaign right now to try to get the museum to break their ties with these oil and gas companies and get on the right side of history. And you can check out that campaign and support it online, no matter where you are in the world, at rightsideofhistory.ca. Rightsidehistory.ca. So check it out, and look forward to seeing you all on the streets or online in the next couple of weeks. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. It's really great to see that divestment up in North America is challenging the big climate denialists, and of course challenging our cultural institutions as well. Just before we wrap up, we definitely have some questions coming in, and I'll take one from the Netherlands in Rotterdam. What are, in your experience, good ways to convince people who are unaware that climate change is happening of the urgency to help with the divestment work? So how do we convince people that climate change is here, it's now, it's urgent, and to really get people to join the divestment mobilization? I will pass that on to Aaron.
Oh, well, I was just going to respond by giving an example from Latin America, where they've got one of the Curitiba, the soccer team in the National League, is getting right behind the Global Divestment Mobilisation. They're going to be unfurling a massive banner, a massive flag, and the soccer team itself is coming out in support. And this is, this is going to be seen across Brazil. So, I mean, this is one remarkable way of reaching a lot of people. But it is really that face-to-face contact, I think, that is really important. Getting out on the streets, just talking to people, building alliances with institutions, organizations, schools, and so on that enable you to get face-to-face with people in different ways. And I think it's really important that as organizers, activists, campaigners, we don't assume that people know what we know or are thinking what we think, but really seek to connect one-to-one and to see that person for who they are, and to use story-based work to connect in a way that connects with people's emotions and perspectives rather than just facts and figures. I saw Louise might want to add to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say something very similar. I think, as well as opportunities like the Global Divestment Mobilisation, where you've just got, that you're part of a wider group of people all over the world, kind of just getting out there in the streets, publicly doing something to show people, creatively through your actions, what's happening on climate change, sharing those stories, etc. I think the other thing to mention is, we're living in an age where anyone with a smartphone can basically share stories, like personal stories, and go live on Facebook or do this kind of live broadcast fairly simply with an internet connection. And I think that's also worth remembering in terms of our power, both as groups and individuals, to kind of share those stories. If you're speaking to someone who's been impacted by climate change, or is on the front lines of the fossil fuel industry, actually sharing that, or using these tools actually to also share more widely to as many people as possible the kinds of actions that are going to be happening in May. And I think if you guys who are watching this scroll down on the page where you're watching this broadcast, there's lots of tips and suggestions and helpful toolkits on how to do that more effectively. So yeah. Ahmed, I think you wanted to come in as well. Over to you.
Yeah, I'll come in, and I don't really want to repeat what's been said by Louise and Aaron, but it would be what I would also add to this is the media does a lot of reporting on climate impacts, and really using your personal social media platforms to share that news with people in your networks, just to let them know that this is real, this is happening, and it's happening right now. I think we do have a lot of platforms at our disposal that we can use to really share the impacts of climate change and really get people geared up to help us in this fight. So yeah, just really supporting what has been said by Aaron and Louise, and just saying to you all out there, use your personal networks and your social media networks to blast out this news.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you all for engaging with us and staying with us. And just before we wrap up, a quick reminder that, we're all gearing up towards this amazing big global divestment mobilization. Please remember that under this video, you'll find some helpful links of things that you can do and things to think about in the coming weeks. Most importantly, do share with us your events. Let us know what is happening. Send us your pictures, your videos. We're all in this together, so let's share those stories as wildly as possible. Let's all celebrate our efforts and make sure that we are using using every tool in our arsenal to stop the fossil fuel industry. And of course, you know, the global divestment mobilization will come and go, but together as a people, we still need to fight the fossil fuel industry. So do ensure that you do have an absorption plan for post the GDM. Do keep us posted on actions and what is happening on your part of the world. We look forward to hearing from you. And from me and the 350 team, I wish you all a fun farewell. Thank you.
Thank you. Woo.